All right, here's the 700-word expansion of your mind as a battlefield in that tone and rhythm you're asking for, keeping it fiery, illustrative, and heart-grabbing. You don't have to look far to realize something. Your thoughts are under attack. Your mind isn't just a quiet place where ideas float around. No, it's a battlefield. Every single day, there's a war going on inside your head. You've got thoughts trying to pull you toward hope, and you've got thoughts trying to drag you down into despair. And here's the thing. You can't see those thoughts coming like an enemy soldier marching down the street. They're subtle. They slip in like whispers telling you you're not enough, you're not loved, you're not going to make it. And if you don't know what's going on, you'll start believing those whispers as if they're truth. See, the enemy knows something about you. He knows if he can control your mind, he can control your life. He doesn't have to take away your opportunities, your money, your health. If he can plant seeds of fear, doubt, and insecurity in your mind, you'll sabotage yourself before you even step into the fight. That's why the mind is such a strategic target. It's the command center. If the enemy can get you to think wrong, he can get you to live wrong. But here's the good news. You're not powerless in this fight. You have the authority to decide what gets to live in your mind and what has to go. You have the ability to take a thought captive before it takes you captive. The problem is too many of us let negative thoughts set up camp. We let them pitch a tent and stay for dinner. We replay them over and over until they feel permanent. But you can't defeat an enemy you keep feeding. So how do you fight back? You gotta recognize a lie the moment it shows up. When a thought walks in that doesn't line up with truth, you don't let it stay and get comfortable. You confront it. You tell it you don't belong here. You replace it with what you know is right. Because here's a principle. You can't just tell yourself, don't think about it, and expect victory. The mind doesn't work like that. If I tell you, don't think about a pink elephant, guess what you're thinking about right now? A pink elephant. You can't just remove a thought. You got to replace it with a better one. If fear tries to take over, replace it with faith-filled words. If insecurity starts creeping in, replace it with a declaration of who you are and what you can do. If hopelessness knocks on the door, answer with a vision of your future that's bigger than your problem. You're not just pushing the enemy out, you're inviting something stronger in. And don't think for a second that this is a one-time event. This is war, and war is daily. Every morning you wake up, you've got to put on your mental armor. You've got to decide, I'm not letting just anything enter my mind today. I'm guarding the gates. You've got to be careful about what you watch, what you listen to, and who you let speak into your life. Because all of that is planting seeds in your thinking. And seeds grow. Some of us are harvesting anxiety, fear, and depression simply because of what we keep sowing into our minds. But when you start sowing words of life, when you surround yourself with people who build you up instead of tear you down, when you fill your mind with images of victory instead of defeat, the battlefield starts to look different. You stop walking around like a victim and start standing like a victor. And let me tell you, the battle might be intense, but the victory is worth it. There's nothing like the freedom of knowing you are not a slave to every thought that crosses your mind. There's nothing like having peace when the world expects you to panic. There's nothing like walking into a situation where you used to break down and realizing you're still standing. That's not because the fight got easier. It's because you learned how to fight better. So I'm telling you today, don't surrender your mind. Don't let negative thoughts dictate your day. This is your battlefield, and you've been given the weapons to win. Stand up in your thinking. Replace the lies with truth. Guard what comes in. And remember, when you win in your mind, you win in your life. If you want, I can now do the replace. Don't just remove expansion in the same voice so your full speech flows like a real live sermon. That way, it'll sound exactly like a continuous Tony Evans-style delivery. All right, here's the 700-word expansion of replace. Don't just remove in that same passionate, rhythmic, and illustrative style as if it's being delivered live from a stage. One of the biggest mistakes we make when we're trying to deal with negative thoughts is thinking we can just tell them to leave and that's the end of it. We think, I'll just stop thinking about it. But the human mind doesn't work that way. You can't just hit a delete button and leave an empty space. That empty space is going to get filled with something. And if you're not intentional, it's going to get filled with the very thing you are trying to get rid of. Let me give you a picture. You ever try to clean out a closet? You pull out all the junk you don't want anymore. But if you don't put something else in there, that space doesn't stay empty for long. Before you know it, new junk finds its way in. That's how your mind works. You can't just remove what's bad. You have to replace it with what's good. Because if you don't replace it, you're just leaving a vacancy for the same kind of negativity to move right back in. Sometimes worse than before. See, too many of us are fighting thoughts like we're playing defense all the time, just trying to block the bad. But you can't win a game by playing defense alone. At some point, you've got to go on the offense. That means instead of only trying to get rid of the wrong thoughts, you start actively planting the right one. You don't just push out fear, you pull in courage. You don't just push out worry, you pull in peace. You don't just push out lies, you pull in truth. Here's the reality. Nature hates a vacuum. If you pull something out, something else is going to come in to take its place. That's why people can walk away from a destructive habit, but if they don't replace that habit with something healthy, they end up going right back to it. You can stop thinking one way for a while, but if you don't build a new pattern in its place, your mind will eventually drift back to the old one. So let's make it practical. Let's say a thought comes to you. You're never going to succeed. You can't just say, I'm not going to think that. You got to have something ready to put in its place. Something like, I have everything I need to succeed, and my steps are ordered toward my destiny. You say it until it starts sinking in. Or maybe the thought comes, nobody cares about you. You don't just swat it away. You replace it with, I am loved, I am valued, and my life matters. And you say it until your emotions start lining up with the words. And let me tell you, this isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about training your mind to focus on what builds you instead of what breaks you. When you choose what to think, you choose the atmosphere you live in. You can walk into a storm, but still carry peace inside because you've replaced chaos with calm. Now, replacing takes discipline. You can't just do it once and call it a day. This is like working out a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets. The first time you try to replace a thought, it might feel awkward, forced even. But keep going. Keep speaking the new thought until it becomes natural. Because here's the truth. What you repeat becomes what you believe. And what you believe becomes how you live. And this is where a lot of people miss it. They try to fight their thoughts in silence. But there's power in speaking the replacement out loud. When you speak it, you're not just thinking it. You're hearing it. You're letting your ears feed your faith. You're drowning out the noise in your head with a voice that declares something better. So the next time negativity comes knocking, don't just tell it to leave. Give it an eviction notice and move a new tenant in. Fill your mind with what's pure, what's strong, what's hopeful. Feed it with things that lift you up instead of weighing you down. That way, even when life tries to sneak the old junk back in, there's no room for it anymore. And if you keep at it, something powerful happens. You stop living on defense. You start taking ground. Your thoughts stop being a place of constant struggle and start becoming a place of constant strength. That's when you realize you're not just surviving your thoughts anymore. You're leading them. And when you lead your thoughts well, your life starts to follow in the same direction. If you want, I can now expand guard the gates of your mind in the same voice so your speech flows as a three-part powerhouse delivery. That's where the energy will really build like a live sermon. Here's the 700-word expansion of guard the gates of your mind in that same high energy, illustrative, and conviction-filled tone. Every day, whether you realize it or not, there are gates to your mind. And they're wide open unless you decide to close them. The eyes are a gate. The ears are a gate. Your conversations are a gate. And whatever comes through those gates doesn't just pass by. it settles in. It sets up shop. And before you know it, it starts shaping the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you live. The problem is, most of us guard our phones better than we guard our minds. You wouldn't just hand your phone to a stranger and say, go ahead, put whatever apps you want on it. But when it comes to our minds, we let people, media, and situations dump all kinds of things in without checking if it's worth having. Then we wonder why we're overwhelmed, anxious, or discouraged. It's because the gates have been unprotected. You can't live a victorious life with an unguarded mind. If you let anything in, any opinion, any image, any word, it's going to have an effect. See, the mind is like soil. Whatever you plant in it is going to grow, and you don't have to try to grow weeds. They show up on their own if you're not careful about what's planted. That's why you can't afford to be passive about your gates. You've got to make a decision about what gets to enter. Think about this. You control the playlist you listen to, the shows you watch, the people you spend the most time with. Those things aren't neutral. They're feeding your mind something. And whatever you feed on mentally is going to show up in your life physically. You can't feed your mind a steady diet of fear, gossip, and negativity and expect to walk in peace, joy, and confidence. That's like eating junk food every day and expecting to feel healthy. It doesn't work. Now, guarding the gates doesn't mean you hide from the world or live in a bubble. It means you set boundaries. It means you decide, I'm not letting this into my mind because I know what it will do once it gets in. You start asking questions. Is this helping me grow? Is this building my faith or tearing it down? Is this bringing me peace or stealing it? If it's not helping you, it's hurting you. And if it's hurting you, why would you keep letting it in? Some of us need to change the company we keep. Not because we're better than anybody else, but because certain voices aren't safe for our gates. You can't hang around people who constantly speak defeat, doubt, or drama and expect to think like a champion. The loudest voices in your ear will eventually become the loudest voices in your head. So if you want a different sound in your thoughts, you've got to be intentional about the sound coming through your gates. The same goes for what you watch and listen to. You may think it's just entertainment, but everything you consume is planting seeds. You might not notice the effect right away, but those seeds grow silently until one day your thoughts start drifting to places you never intended. That's why some of us feel drained without knowing why. It's because we've been letting things in that are slowly stealing our strength. But here's the good news. You're the gatekeeper. You get to decide what stays and what goes. You can shut the gate to what's toxic and open it wide to what's life-giving. You can fill your ears with words that inspire you, your eyes with images that uplift you, your conversations with people who push you toward your best self. When you do that, you start to notice a shift. The battlefield in your mind isn't as noisy. The negativity doesn't hit as hard. The hope starts outweighing the fear. And let me tell you, when you guard the gates, you start living on purpose. You stop reacting to everything that comes your way and start choosing what comes your way. You stop letting the world tell you how to think and start deciding for yourself. You start feeling lighter, stronger, more focused because you're not weighed down by all the junk that used to flood your mind. So today, I'm challenging you, be the gatekeeper of your own mind. Don't wait for someone else to protect it. Don't assume the good will outweigh the bad. If you're not watching the gates, decide what gets in. And don't apologize for protecting your peace. Because when your gates are guarded, your mind is clear. And when your mind is clear, your life starts to move in the direction of victory, purpose, and power. If you want, I can also now expand Speak Life Over Yourself in the same style. So the whole message series feels like one complete, unstoppable sermon flow that would give you a perfect YouTube-ready delivery from start to finish. Here's the 700-word expansion of Speak Life Over Yourself in that same passionate, story-driven, and truth-packed tone. There's a reason your words matter more than you think. The way you talk to yourself is shaping the way you live, whether you realize it or not. Some of us speak over our lives like we're cursing our own future. We say things like, I'll never get out of this. I'm not smart enough. I'm just unlucky. And we don't even realize those words are planting seeds. Seeds that grow into the very limitations we're living in right now. You've got to understand, your mouth is a tool. It can be a weapon that tears down, or it can be a tool that builds up. And the first construction site it works on is you. The most influential voice in your life is not your boss, your spouse, or your friends. It's yours. Because you're the one you hear from the most. Every day, all day, you're talking to yourself in your head. And if that voice is constantly telling you what you can't do, what you're not, and why it won't work, you're going to live like those words are true. But you have the power to change that. You can start speaking life instead of death over yourself. You can start declaring what you want to see instead of repeating what you're afraid of. You can start saying, I am equipped for this. I am favored. I am capable. I am going to make it, even when you don't feel it yet. Because here's the thing, your words can lead your feelings, and your feelings can follow your word. Now, this isn't about pretending bad things don't exist. It's about deciding which voice is going to be the loudest in your life. When fear starts talking, you don't have to let it have the last word. When doubt starts whispering, you don't have to agree with it. You can counter it with words that line up with the life you want to live. And you've got to say it out loud, because when you hear yourself speaking truth, it hits different. It becomes harder for your own mind to argue against your own voice. Think about how often you've talked yourself out of something good because of the words you spoke over yourself. You wanted to start the business, but you told yourself, I'm not ready. You wanted to reach out and repair the relationship, but you said, it's too late. You wanted to step up and lead, but you convinced yourself, I'm not the type of person who can do that. That wasn't life speaking. That was death disguised as realism. The shift happens when you start speaking the opposite. You might still feel unready, but you say, I'm learning and I'm growing and I'll step out anyway. You might still feel the sting of past mistakes, but you say, my future is not chained to my past. You might still feel fear, but you say, I am bold and courageous, even in the face of uncertainty. Those words aren't magic, but they are medicine. They don't instantly change the world around you, but they change the world inside you. And that's where everything starts. And you've got to make this a habit. Speaking life isn't a one-time pep talk. It's a lifestyle. It means you wake up in the morning and you set the tone for your day with your own mouth. You tell yourself, I am ready for today. I am prepared for what's ahead. I am walking into favor and opportunity. Even if the day throws something hard at you, you keep speaking life. You don't let the storm change your declaration. You let your declaration change how you handle the storm. Some people might think you're strange for talking to yourself like that. Let them think it. They're not the ones living your life. You are. And the truth is, the people who speak life consistently are the ones who start living it, because your words are steering your life like a rudder steers a ship. You may not see the shift right away, but keep speaking in the right direction and you'll start moving in that direction. So today, watch your words. Pay attention to how you talk about yourself when nobody's listening. Stop agreeing with every negative thought that pops into your head. Stop speaking like your situation is permanent. Start declaring what you want to see. Start speaking over your life like you believe it can get better. Because here's the reality. If you keep speaking death, you'll live in it. But if you start speaking life, sooner or later, you'll walk right into it. Now you've got all four sections. They can flow together into one powerhouse. YouTube sermon from Your Mind is a Battlefield, all the way to Speak Life Over Yourself. If you want, I can stitch them together with a strong opening and closing so the whole thing feels like one live, uninterrupted delivery. That would make it sound exactly like a real full-length Tony Evans style speech.